Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harper on Rugby preview show. And joining me to look ahead to Saturday's first test at Loftus Versfeld is someone back for his 57th cap. A warm welcome to Mr. Tom Coleman.
Good to be back, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Indeed, good.
I thought the summer was off, but here we are.
Oh, geez, it's a never-ending season, isn't it? It just keeps going on and on. But before we get to the match, Tom, just a quick word on the Irish men's under-20s who are also down in South Africa. We've enjoyed two very different wins out of two, starting with that 55-15 demolition of Italy on Saturday.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous about that game beforehand because anyone that looked at the Italy-Ireland game in the Six Nations, it went right down to the wire, and I was expecting another close game because a lot of the Italian players that played in that game back in the Six Nations were playing again. But I couldn't be more wrong. I thought Ireland were unbelievable. Ran in tries from everywhere, over 50 points, and really put Italy to the sword. Scrum went a bit, was a little bit creaky, but I thought even when the subs came on, they really kept going and going and going. So, yeah, really unexpected. The way the format is in the under 26 nations, getting a big win like that in your pool really sets you up for a good chance of getting to the semi-finals is where you want to get, and obviously that led us on to today's game against Georgia.
And like you say, at lunchtime on Thursday, we faced Georgia. And after taking an early 12-0 lead where we looked reasonably comfortable, we began to have issues at lineouts. And then the Georgians were suddenly thwarting us with the impressive line speed and jackling. And by the final quarter, they nudged themselves ahead before two missed penalties, gave us a sniff right up to the final play. And after 24 exhausting phases, mostly deep in the Georgian 22, it was number 23, Finn Tracy, who found the space to go over in the corner. It was really tough on the Georgians. But from an Irish perspective, a really good finish after a lot of systems errors throughout the match. And in the other match in our pool, the Italians bounced back from Saturday's hammering to beat Australia, whom we play next on Tuesday. So we're well poised overall, but still some work to do. And just a quick word as well on the new Irish under-20s women's side. They may have lost 33-10 to England at the start of their summer series, but overall, it's great for the women's game here that just the team exists at all and is getting some competitive matches. So here's hoping everything continues in the right direction there. Okay, so now it's time to look at our feature match of the week, which was, of course, South Africa v Ireland in the first test of what apparently is called the Castle Lager Incoming Series. It's taking place at Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria on Saturday, July the 6th, kicking off at 4 p.m. Irish time. TV coverage in Ireland is on both Sky Sports Main Event and Sky Sports Action. Now, Razzie thought he named the Irish Matchday 23 back on Monday, but officially, Ireland named it on Thursday. And if you're watching on YouTube, it should be right there in the screen, or for pod listeners, it's in the program notes. Now, Tom has picked out a couple of points, starting with the new cap in the starting lineup.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'd just like to say, I know when Jake White, who's managed up in Europe for a good while, and obviously has managed South Africa in previous, when he went back to South Africa, I wasn't sure if he brought Dana White with him because this match has been set up like a UFC fight from the South African side. The hype is really, I've never seen even hype for this for the old Tri-Nations games against New Zealand, or at least I don't recall it. But yeah, it's been different. It's been different. It's definitely the match that everybody's looking forward to this weekend. And you're right, Razzie thought he would name the team and do a little bit of a Jose Mourinho light on the whole situation, but Andy threw a spanner in the works by naming young Jamie Osborne at fullback. I know this might seem like hindsight at the time, but I'm sure I'll find it online. I actually think Jamie could be a really decent fullback, and I think given the type of game that's going to be played the weekend, I think having that second kicking option in the backfield, I think it's a really good option for Ireland. He's very good under the high ball. He's physically strong. He's got a hell of a boot on him. And I think Farrell probably looked at Leinster's failings against the Bulls, where our kicking was either a bit short or if they weren't contestable enough, where the Bulls kicking was just way better than ours. So I think he'd be looking to Lowe, to Crowley, and to Osborne to add some depth to that kick game and get that South African back three turned and try and play the game down in their end of the pitch. But yeah, I think it's a good call. People were looking for change for this game. We're too predictable to pick, and here we have we've a bit of a left field call at fullback, but I don't think it's quite the Robbie Henshaw versus England at fullback. Osborne, I know, but this is an ultimate test. Apart from Auckland, maybe against the All Blacks, playing this the Springboks in Pretoria. So, even if the younger players, whether it be Crowley, Casey, Osborne, have an iffy game, I think people just should remember not to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, because you're playing against the double world champions in their backyard, where they love to bring, this is where they play the All Blacks when they have to play them, and they do that for a reason. So I think a bit of context after the match on analysing, Casey's performance or Osborne's performance is badly needed. But yeah, I'm excited to see how Jamie will go.
Yeah, I mean those two names you mentioned, Casey and Osborne in particular. I mean they were enforced changes because I'm pretty sure that Gibson Park and Hugo Keenan would have been playing if they were available. But no, it's an interesting call. Of course, I suppose Razzie will probably think that they made the change just because of his prediction. But I think we've got all the evidence that from Andy Farrell that he knuckles down and does his thing during the week no matter what's, and let's whatever's going on social media go on. And there's it is a good call. It's interesting. It's a good way to give someone their first cap and put them in a position. But like you say, with the atmosphere down there and all, and the long kicking, it's going to be advantageous to us as well. And like you say, he is good under the high ball. I mean, Jimmy O'Brien was an option there as well. But it's a brave choice. And of course, you could probably saw him do well in training as well. So he probably could have been tearing it up throughout the week while they've been there. So we'll see how that works out. And as for Casey as well, I mean, we spoke about this. We had a pod there last week looking ahead at the series as a whole, and we kind of assumed that Casey would get the starting nod. It does make sense. He's more of an up tempo player than Connor Murray, and Craylin Blades out there as well, but he probably was the third choice option. So and it makes sense with Casey and Crowley there. Their knowledge from Munster and stuff. It all kind of made sense in that regard. So we'll see how they get on. And your second point, you're having a look at our bench, which we thought might go a different way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, with South Africa, there's always the talk of 7-1s and even 6-2s, and we've even gone 6-2 ourselves a few times. But it's back to the traditional 5-3. But I think the inclusion of Osborne, it's funny, it gives a little bit of flexibility. Crowley could slot the full back at some stage if need be, if Frawley come on. And then you've obviously Murray. It's quite a strong bench. Physically, Henshaw obviously gets the nod over Ringrose, but Ringrose has shown pretty adept to cover on the wing as well. So I would have no fear of him coming on. So I just think some of the sort of the flexibility of the personnel picked, and we've mentioned, Crowley can play in several positions, or at least two positions. Osborne can cover three. Then you've got you have Ringrose to come on, and he can cover the wing quite well. So it will be interesting to see how it goes, and it just gives that flexibility. I think because we were able to pick Baird and Ryan, and the last Baird and Ryan sort of covers the sort of back row and second row as well. So there's a bit of flexibility there as well. It's he interestingly didn't go for obviously Jack Coleman is back home. He skipped this tour for personal reasons, which rightly so. So yeah, I think it's a good bench. I think Finlay Bealham has gone well against in the scrum as well. So it's nice to see him still getting the nod. I'm sure Jaeger is chomping at the bit maybe to get a look in at the second test. But yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. South Africa have some inexperience on the bench, along with some very experienced players. So yeah, it looks like a game that could go right down to the wire.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, flexibility has been kind of the key for. I mean, we're still trying to crack that tournament success in major tournaments. The World Cup and going deep into tournaments. And I think one of the keys to that is having flexible players that can play multiple positions. And Ringrose, Frawley, Osborne, Crowley, like in the backs, all of them as well. And we're looking at hybrid. Second rows and back rows and all that stuff. And now, we even brought Tom O'Toole. They're saying that he could play on the other side as well. But they've gone for Healy this time, so we'll see how many minutes they're going to squeeze out of Andrew Porter this time. So, but listen, no, it is an interesting lineup, and the bench, like they could have gone both ways, but they gone with the 5-3. So it's showing a lot of faith in the starting forwards to set up a decent situation to hand over to the bench for sure. Okay, so now it's time to have a look at the Springboks. Now, if you look one back in both our podcast and YouTube feeds, you'll find a chat I had with Tara Masutu from the excellent Rugby Bits podcast. He gave us some good insight on their lineup. From an Irish point of view, what do you make of it, Tom?
Yeah, it's pretty much as you expect. Do you know what I mean? It's funny with Razzie, jokingly naming our team. A lot of a lot of people could have named their team as well. I suppose the one left field was Quagga Smith. Um, we've funny enough, we've mentioned Quagga Smith a few times on the Leinster pod throughout the year as the sort of Jacques Nienaber, Razzie perfect example of somebody who gets these impacts per minutes, which the South Africans love to go on about. And that's what Quagga Smith gives you. He gives that a high rate of impacts per minute. That's impacts on the game over the time he's on. And he's one of those players that ticks a lot of those boxes. So he is a favourite of the coaching team. And with Jasper Wiese, having a little bit of time off for his naughtiness over in Welford Road, they've gone with Quagga Smith. And I actually think Quagga is a better player. I'm not, I think, and they've gone from over some of the more youthful people that was maybe putting pressure on, like Evan Roos. But I think he's a player that maybe they're still worried about his temperament. He can be a little bit hot-headed at time, and this is not the sort of game where you want to give up a card early on, and discipline will be key as well as we've seen in the World Cup match. But yeah, look, it's a very strong South African team. I suppose Malcolm Marx is back as well after a long injury. I know he played a bit against Wales, and he's always a big addition for South Africa. He always makes an impact, so it'll be a good battle with him and Kelleher, for Kelleher to step up to. Obviously, Leinster-bound RG Snyman is on the bench, so it'll be an interesting watch from there. Marco van Staden, who played pretty well against us in the Bulls, but for the Bulls, he's again more experienced player, and the young guy on the Sasha FNZ, as they call him down there. So I'm just going to stick with the same pronunciations as the South African podcast.
Sounds good to me. Yeah,
he's a very exciting player. And Grant Williams, we've seen with the Sharks, is a sort of a hybrid wing. So they still have lots of pace on that. They have a huge amount of pace on the back three to come on. So if our kicking is a bit wayward, we spoke about kicking in the first part of the pod. If our kicking is a bit wayward, they've got both the starting 15 back three, along with Willie Leroux, who gave a kicking masterclass against Leinster from the hand, but the winger starting and the guys on the bench, if we have any loose kicking at all, they're going to run back and gain yards on us, no problem. So that's maybe why our kicking game and the players we've picked has to be on point.
Yeah, I mean, talking about predictability, I mean, the one thing that they're going to do, and Quagga Smith, if anything, is one of the best at it, is just making absolute pudding of the breakdown. And but it's up to us. We know they're going to do that. We know that's going to happen, and it's just going to be about how our back row responds. But that could be the win and losing of the game, especially in that early stages. I feel we're going to have to really going to need to get some points on the board, or at least have some kind of a margin in those early stages. So it's definitely set up to be a great test. All right. Okay, so now a quick look at the officials there. Now there was a change. I think it was Angus Gardner who was going to be the ref, but it was changed to Luke Pearce, so he's got the whistle, and we've got the other officials there. You see on the screen. The weather for Pretoria on the Saturday afternoon is a full day of sunshine. Is the official AccuWeather description of the weather. They'll take that. Not much wind and 0% rain. So that should be perfect kind of conditions there. And of course, this isn't the only test match taking place this weekend. Of the others, which one are you most looking forward to?
Well, I suppose it's hard to not look at England and New Zealand, really, as you've got Razors, the new team with after leaving the Crusaders, and he's picked an interesting team to play against England. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how England go, and with New Zealand's first game under the new coach, so that'll be interesting to watch early Saturday morning. And I suppose from a Leinster point of view, and not that it's ever easy to shout against Wales, but it's definitely hard to shout for Australia as well. It's one of those games, but I'll be interested from afar to see how Joe Smith's Australia goes. I think he's 7 new caps in that, so obviously he's cleaned house, and it'll be interesting to see. Is it the early Joe Smith style that we were all well used to, or is it with Leinster, or the latter Joe Smith style? I have a feeling we could see early Joe appear again, and might be some exciting rugby from Australia against Wales.
Absolutely. Well, they definitely needed something anyway, change. And I think he was just one of the definitely right kinds of person to come in there and make those changes. But we'll see how they get on. There's like plenty going on in Welsh rugby as well behind the scenes. It's
Yeah.
sort of like a playoff of two great nations that that definitely need a lift. Need a couple of results. Okay, so now it's head on the block time. Tom, how do you see it going on the high velts?
Uh, you'd have to fancy South Africa in Pretoria. They have the game under the belt against Wales. Now I know they needed that because they haven't played since the World Cup. We have obviously played the Six Nations. Um, I it, I think with a lot of these summer tests, I think the first game is always the best chance to turn them over, because we're coming off the peak of our season. Now I know South Africa have joined up with us, but we're sort of coming off the peak of our season, and yeah, it'll be close, but I think South Africa just maybe by a score by 5 or 3 or 5, just to get over the line. I think yeah, South Africa by a few, but I think it'll be a very physical game, and yeah, look, if we're in it with 10 minutes to go and it's competitive and the nerves kick in for them, yeah, I'll be happy to take that and see where the last 10 minutes end up. But South Africa just, I think.
Yeah, I agree on that. The key difference between, I mean, the South African clubs might have come up and joined us up in the north, but the key difference is that we had our Six Nations in the midst of that. It's a long season with that big attritional 7-week tournament right in the middle of us, and they're just gearing up for their rugby championship now. So their test side is on a different kind of different kind of path, as it were. But it's really important that we get off to a good start and still be in it to coming towards halftime. But listen, lots to look forward to for sure.
Yeah, I look, you hate saying which players are better and stuff like that, but the reality is, if you were to take this cycle since the last summer, our two most informed players is Hugo Keenan and Jamison Gibson Park, and they're both missing, and that's fine. That's not an excuse because that's rugby.
Mm-hmm.
But I think added to what we say, that's why I'm swaying towards a home win.
Yeah,
And
that's the smart money.
and
All
I'd
right.
be delighted for South Africa to get a win after waiting for a while to get a win over Ireland.
Absolutely, they really want it. I mean, it's like two World Cups isn't quite enough for them.
Well,
Oh,
I have to fit the narrative. Razzie says arrogant. We're not meant to be arrogant, Ireland. We're meant to know our place. You know,
exactly.
we're meant to know our place.
Well, the only thing I've said is that if we do win that first test, they need to walk up to Eben Etzebeth and say, "See you in the second test, mate," and see what he says afterwards. Okay, listen, we're gonna leave it there, man. Many thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again next week out of the second test. Thanks, Tom.
Cheers, Jeff.
And many thanks to you all for checking out our latest preview show. And if you can also tune into Dublin South 93.9 FM around 5 p.m. on Friday for our Harp and Rugby segment, then be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are. You can follow us on all the usual social media channels. We will, of course, have a wrap pod for you this week and recording on Sunday evening. And hopefully you'll help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.